Good morning. I wanted to do a quick video on Circe by Madeline Miller. She is fantastic, a really great book. I normally try and stray away from fiction. Thus far this year in January, I read about 5 books, and this is the only fiction book I've read. I try and stray away from it simply because a lot of times with fiction you will get the author will try to evoke unearned emotions. So they'll try and twist your emotions just right with different characters that they haven't really earned. They haven't really built the world that way. They're violating this or that instead of just telling a really great story. This book is fantastic on every level. Strong emotions and even stronger storytelling, and it really succeeds in 3 different ways. Number one is that if you have ever taken a literature course or a classics course at high school, college level, you've probably been told, okay, Zeus, Helios, Athena, just lists and lists of Greek gods and goddesses, and kind of how there's nymphs and there's titans and all manner, there's fates, there's all manner of different entities that the Greeks believed in. And for most people, they never kind of put in the context. They never they don't read enough of this literature to really get kind of the world that the Greeks, as the Greeks understood it. Essentially, all of these different things will be little footnotes on whatever work of literature you're reading. So if Odysseus and Athena talk, there might be a footnote. Athena is the daughter of Zeus, known for X, Y, and Z. But that really doesn't convey how the Greeks took that to be, and as a result, most classic literature doesn't make any sense to the average reader today. There's very little context, so it's just kind of Odysseus going through one battle and then he wins, and another battle and he wins, and another battle and he wins, which is extremely boring. This book is quite the opposite. It takes all of that and it shows you the first-person view of how Circe experiences existence, and it's fantastic. It really makes sense of why you would do X instead of Y, and why this person did that, and it kind of it breathes context back into all of these stories that you know about, but didn't necessarily understand or care for in the past. It's really just all around fantastic. So that's one reason you should read it, just because it's a fantastic novel, and if even if you just have a passing knowledge of Greek and Greek mythology, this is really going to add to you're going to have far more tools looking back on kind of the stories that you've read before and understanding them. You're going to be far better equipped for that after reading this story. Number 2, really great power politics. I've studied ideology for a very long time, and a lot of the most difficult parts of that is showing people different power dynamics that exist that people don't necessarily believe exist. So it's just one of those things. This book does a great job of drawing power dynamics and saying, hey, if all you do is put your head down and try and please other people and try and do what you're told in life, people are going to walk all over you. And it's true in that world, and it's true in this world as well. People who are weaker than you are going to who are in a worse position than you are going to take advantage of you. This book gives you a safe distance for which you can kind of think about those power dynamics, and kind of getting that understanding from hey, that was way in the past, that was a different culture, that's a fictional story. Understanding power dynamics there and highlighting them there will allow people to apply them in their own lives. And it's just kind of one of those things that in today's world, everyone's trying to get something from you. Everyone's trying to get you to pay interest on your car note. They're trying to get you to take out a big loan on your house and never pay it down early. That's advice people give you. They're getting you they want you to put money in a retirement fund in the S&P 500. Everyone's trying to take your money and it's even more than that. Take your time. Politics is really big right now, and that's really just people wanting to co-opt your time and your ideas to serve their ends. And you might agree with those ends, but anyways, long story short, if you don't wake up every day with a game plan, you're gonna reach old age and still be very poor, and wonder where all your resources went, wonder where all your time went. And that includes even people who are very well paid. Even people who are extremely well paid, it's just another tier. Instead of taking a loan out on a car for $5,000, you're taking a loan out on a car that's $80,000, and then you're still same thing, still the same way to take people's resources. And that's essentially what happens to Circe up until she decides that she's going to take the power she has, and she's going to take what she wants. It's a really amazing transformation, personal transformation for her, and it is the same, kind of the same thing I've always thought is. I think it's a fantastic solution for the world we live in today. So essentially, Circe understands that she's never going to change the system. No one's ever going to give her what she wants just because she deserves it, just because she's doing the right thing, just because she's loyal. What she decides is that she has this power that's new in the world, and she's going to essentially just not destroy the old world, but make a new world. On her island, she's gonna change the way the world works, and she's not gonna ask permission. Really, really great. The saying, you can't change the world, but every bit helps. And she did what was right for her, and you can't really ask more than that than a life well lived. And I read some reviews online that were talking about, hey, she punked out, she was supposed to take on the patriarchy, and instead she just committed suicide. She committed suicide in the sense that all of us commit suicide, right? Like in the sense that being human means that you will die. And so if you choose to be human, you choose death. Yes, but that's the same problem all of us have to face. All humans will eventually die. So I guess by living, you're committing suicide is if you want to twist it that way, that's not what she's doing at all. She's taking control of her life. She wants X, Y, and Z. She wants to live, above all, a good life, and that's what she does. Moving forward on that same point, very similar to the decision Captain America makes at the end of Infinity War. He lived his entire life for other people, fulfilling these larger things, sublimating what he wants, so taking what he wants and putting that to the side in order to work towards these larger goals, like the safety of America, defeating Hydra, defeating the Nazis, patriotism in general. All of those are valiant goals. However, at some point he decides, well, I can't keep, because he was young, he could still stay in the Avengers for the next 50 years or whatever. But at some point he said, when he went back and returned all the stones, he made the same decision as Circe. Like, I want to live a regular life as a regular person, and instead of being a hero, I'd rather be someone who is unknown. So really great all around, just really fantastic. Anyways, long story short, the third reason you should read this book. This is what feminism done right looks like. Feminism done wrong is a lot of what you see right now, which is you make some kind of outlandish theory, just throw it out into the public, and you criticize anyone and call them bigots if they disagree, or if they say, hey, that doesn't pass the sniff test. This happens a lot, just to drive, the economy of clicks right now. But this book is the exact opposite. What you want to do with feminism is, at a safe distance, so not saying, hey, you guy on the street, you're a bigot, but saying, hey, safe distance. This is in a world where it's fictional, but a lot of the power structures mirror the power structures we live in today. There's this great story of Vladimir Putin, how he asked an NFL player if he could see his Super Bowl ring. So I just want to look at it. So the guy hands it to him. Vladimir Putin says he likes it, puts it in his pocket, walks out the door. Now, realistically, what's that football player going to do? He can't sue the Russian government. He can't physically go over there and take it from Vladimir Putin, because he has, guards and guns, and he'll get shot. Vladimir just took what he wanted, and that's the world we live in. And patriarchy. Most feminists who are, PhD level and are actually extremely thoughtful, and it's not what you see on TV. It is a very nuanced opinion of these social dynamics, and a patriarchy isn't necessarily built by men, and it's not necessarily perpetrated by men or promulgated by men. even if you had women, even if you changed all the men for women in those same spots of power, you'd still have a patriarchy. Patriarchy, for lack of a better word, is just, the power structures that we inherit. The idea that, men need to be providers. That's not the greatest idea I've ever heard, right? I'd rather just, sit on the beach, starting at 25 and just retire for my entire life. I'd love to be in a world where we could make that happen. We could work from, 20 to 25, and then that produced enough goods and services for our entire lifetimes. We don't live in that world yet, but this idea that, men have to provide for the family, you might think it's a great idea, but regardless of if you think it's good or not, it is an inherited idea. And, you shouldn't necessarily live your life according to these inherited ideas. Now, the gods, it's not necessarily inherited ideas. These powers are inherited, but they're, physical powers. They can set things on fire. They can change people and gods into other things. They're extremely powerful, but still an inherited power structure. And there's all kinds of these things. It's very difficult to show people kind of all the power structures that exist and all the ways that people are guided, left and right. Why jobs are the way they are, why most companies are structured the way they are. That right there is a patriarchy. And again, if you have women in a patriarchal system, it's still a patriarchy. And patriarchy gets kind of a bad name because a lot of men think it's blaming them, and that's exactly how feminists do it in the real world. That's exactly how they practice feminist ideas in the real world. But realistically, we can just talk about inherited power structures and how we might change those to be better for not only women but also men. So a great one that is often talked about on Joe Rogan and a ton of different men's rights ideas is that divorce court. It's brutal towards men, and we're still trying to figure out what we're doing. And this is an inherited power structure. This idea that men are responsible for taking care of the family. Even if the woman cheats on him, even if the woman gets a divorce, you're still on the hook. You still got to pay that alimony. You still have to pay that child support. It's absolutely brutal the way men are treated. And again, inherited power structures. The fact that men get drafted and women don't. Inherited power structure. And we shouldn't be bound by those. And if we are going to keep them in place, we need to really think about what we're what is best and what is not. And we can go gradually, but we should at least be thinking about it. One of the things that not a lot of people know about, but there was this profound change in the military, not within our lifetimes, but within our parents' lifetimes. I mentioned the draft and how men get drafted. And people might say, hey, we need the draft just in case there's a big war. Well, there actually was a big war. It was called Iraq, and it was called Afghanistan. It was a global war on terror. It's a gigantic war, and we didn't do the draft. And that is mostly, and that is a huge step for freedom for men, and that is a huge blow to the patriarchy, because the patriarchy put down force when it comes to violence. They put down the force they use against the native population, in this case Americans. And instead they persuade the native population, which is a huge step forward for us in America. And this was done basically by a couple of economists who said, look, military is a job just like any job. If you want someone to do it, you just pay more. And this way, you're going to get down on people who are really resentful. You're going to cut down on friendly fire, on people sniping their officers. You're going to have a much more cohesive fighting force and a much better army if you pay people instead of draft them. And that is a huge change within our parents' lifetimes, and we can't thank the economists who are responsible for that enough. Anyways, long story short, I've only got a couple more seconds here. I know I've been talking about a lot of other things. It's because I don't necessarily want to reveal too much about the book. I know I gave a couple spoilers, but it's an amazing book. Fantastic by every stretch of the imagination. It really does allow you to kind of understand Greek mythology in the way the Greeks probably had, the Greeks probably had all kinds of context. Athena was not just a mascot for Athens. And this book really does show how that is the case. Anyways, I hope you have a wonderful day. And yeah, if you have any questions, please comment. I'd be happy to talk to anyone. Bye.